Welcome to Running Your Stories. I'm here today with Laura Beth, who I only know from Instagram before today. And I saw a great post from Laura a couple of weeks ago talking about her eating disorder in the past and how much she's trying to share her experiences to help others. And I thought it would be fantastic to have her on the podcast and talk about this. And if it helps somebody, that's absolutely brilliant. I'm sure we'll get an interesting story out of it either way. So welcome, Laura.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for inviting me. It's nice to meet you.
Yeah, nice to meet you. And certainly enjoy seeing your posts about your running, which is most of the posts that you put out. And then I started to notice, these interesting ones about the journey that you've been on, I guess through your whole life.
Yeah, very much so. It's only been probably really recently that I've been really open actually on social media about my journey through my eating disorders, and obviously because I'm in quite a good place now with my recovery. I'm enjoying talking about it.
Yeah, so do you want to talk us through a little about where it started and what some of the background?
Yeah, so I developed an eating disorder about 19, 20 years old. I always had quite a unhealthy relationship with food from being such a young age. In fact, I'll be honest with you, it was only this week it kind of dawned on me talking to somebody. I can remember when I was as young as 7 or 8, and then feeling like I shouldn't eat more than 2 packets of crisps a day. And at a very young age, there was thoughts there. And I only realised this week, actually. And then into my teens, as children can make comments about your body growing up that was quite negative. So there was always something in my mind with it. And then it's about 19, 20 years old. I pretty much didn't eat very much for a whole year. And then I realised I did need to start eating again. I began eating again, but I just felt so incredibly guilty. And I was just so concerned about putting weight on every time that I had a meal. So that led to, 16 years with bulimia. All my adult life, I've been restricting food. I've been over-exercising, purging food. And then 3 years ago, I started my recovery journey. So it's been a long, how I say this, it's been a long, hard slog getting to where I am now. But I'm in such a good place now, and I love doing these interviews with people like yourself because I just want to bring this out there, because there's thousands of people that are struggling with an eating disorder, and it's so hard to talk about. So I love doing this. So I'm really pleased you reached out to me.
Yeah, thanks for that. If I can come back to a couple of things, I guess we'll just start a little chronologically. Very interesting that you say like 7 to 8 year old, you were already feeling some kind of pressure. I have a daughter who's 10 now, and I notice my daughter's relationship with food is different to my son. She has a twin brother, and it's something I'm keenly aware of to try and help them always have a good relationship with body image and food. Yet parents aren't the only pressure on the kids. So what kind of pressure were you sort of seeing at that age?
It was more the fact that I was thinking this was more naughty food, and that I shouldn't probably be eating more chocolate or crisps than I should have. And luckily, I mean, my children are nothing like that at the minute, and I hope they aren't. But it was just at such a young age, and like I say, it just dawned on me last week that had happened when I was, at junior school. So I do think there was something that it triggered in my mind somewhere there growing up. And I wasn't always I wasn't the slimmest out of all the friends at school, so that probably had a little bit of an impact. And then when I went up to secondary school, there's some nasty comments that were said to me growing up, which stay with me, and I sometimes think about them now, actually. And then when I became older and hitting 19, 20, I became involved in a crowd, and it was a bit of a cool crowd. And I thought I needed to probably look a little bit different. And by losing a bit of weight, I might be a bigger part of the cool crowd. So, yeah, and I can remember there was some days and I'd just eat a couple of crackers and an apple. And that lasted for months, for nearly a year. And I did lose a lot of weight at the time. And to be honest with you, I'm not sure what triggered the day when I realised I need to start eating again. But I did, and I didn't think I'd got a problem then. And then obviously if you start eating, you put weight on. So then this, I don't even know if I'd read about bulimia. There must have been something I'd seen somewhere. And, that's when my relationship started with bulimia. And I thought for years, I didn't have a problem then. For years, it was a good 6 years of bulimia before I realised that maybe I've got a bit of an issue.
Yeah, it's really interesting sort of hearing your story, because every person at some point thinks about maybe I'm eating too much, maybe I shouldn't eat this or I shouldn't eat that, and everything that I've read and sort of know about with eating disorders is there isn't one day where it goes from being okay, I'll not have that extra bar of chocolate or something, into actually being an eating disorder. It's a very progressive sort of slow process, and when you're in the middle of something, it's very. I know from other things, because I mean the one mental health thing that I've always dealt with is anxiety, which I've talked about on the podcast a number of times, and my anxiety, when it kind of peaks, it triggers anger. I get very angry in a way that then makes me very ashamed. But when I'm in the middle of that, it's almost impossible to see it. You feel like you're absolutely right to be angry, and I can only sort of empathize and kind of carry over my experience with anxiety into what it might be like with having bulimia, where you think, well, this is the right thing to do while I'm doing this, and I can understand why it's so hard to not realize that it's actually a problem.
It was, I always say it was there from morning through the daytime through night, and bulimia, it was just, I called her B, I gave her a name, and she was just there. She was like my evil best friend, I used to say. No matter what I did, whether I was at work, whether I was at the gym over exercising, no matter what I did, whether I was at a family get together, if I'd gone out for a drink, it was always there ticking away at the back of my mind, just a constant scratch. And it's only this last couple of years when I think, gosh, that was every day of my life for years that I went through that. And at first I didn't think I'd got a problem. In fact, one of my posts on Instagram last week, I look back sometimes now, and at one point I felt really sad for me, and I felt like I just wish I could go back and give me a hug years ago and say, one day things will be okay. Because I never thought I'd be in the position I am in now. I thought this was just my life for forever, because it was all my adult life. Don't get me wrong, there's some days now that are still a tricky, more harder to deal with, but now I'm in such a good place from where I've been. And this is another thing, people say, my mum said to me, I've got the old Laura back, but I don't know who the old Laura was, because this has been my life forever. So I'm like, the old Laura, I think, well, I don't know who she was. So I'm just me now, and I'm so much happier.
Yeah, there's definitely something to be said for having been through some life experience, if we want to put it that way, and it shapes who you are. Will give you a level of understanding and empathy with other people that you couldn't otherwise have if you haven't been through some of these things. I think the whole relationship with food, and I think when we first sort of messaged about doing the podcast, we're saying that at this time of having had lockdowns and things, it's a kind of particularly apt time, likely to be, with a lot of people, because I think it's I know the time when I started putting most weight on it, it's sort of in my life and got to the heaviest I've been, was when I started working from home, because the kitchen's a few steps away.
Yeah.
And now lots of people in the past year have started working from home. So I'm sure a lot of people have been through a similar experience to what I had when I started working from home.
Yeah.
Now for me, it's actually, that's what started my running journey, in that I started working from home. After about 2 years of working from home and traveling with work, I'd put on quite a lot of weight. Not, again, people wouldn't have sort of called me fat, as it were, because I'm 6'2", so I can carry a lot of weight before people notice. But it was when I then decided to, because I volunteer for Mountain Rescue, and I went out to the Alps climbing with Mountain Rescue friends, and found out that I couldn't physically do the things I wanted to do, and thought, okay, I better sort of sort out my physical health here. And I kind of had that awakening by not being as fit and healthy as
That's really interesting.
I want to be. Yeah.
So when did you start running then?
So that was 2017, I think. So
you're not relatively long then, is it?
No,
wow, good for you.
Yeah, it's not long ago, and it just I started doing parkrun just to kind of track my progress. And that's where it all started.
And now you're running these big runs, huge runs.
Yeah, now doing the big ones. So I was just thinking about that whole sort of process of how do you recognize that things aren't going the way you want them to do, and making that choice to change. Because you said earlier that there came a point after 16 years where, or maybe it was before the end of the 16 years, where you made a choice to start to change. What was it that triggered that?
Yeah, so 3 years ago, I joined a charity as a service user, First Steps, which is an eating disorder charity. So previous to that, I'll backtrack. I had a couple of really bad experiences with the doctor. And I found a doctor that could relate a little bit more to eating disorders. And I came across, I was informed of First Steps. So I joined First Steps, and I did a few regular sessions with them. There were group sessions, and we spoke about coping mechanisms, triggers. And it was just nice to be with a group of people that was going through similar kind of experiences myself. And so that was a big turning point. But in all honesty, it has only been this probably last year, 18 months, where everything is completely changed for the better. I actually went on medication through my eating disorder. So I tried everything: counselling, meditation, therapy sessions. And if I'm completely honest, I was in a really extremely bad place. At 18 months, 2 years, it was about 2 years ago now, and I went to the doctors and we decided I need to go into antidepressants. So I went on to them, and within, I don't know, it would have been maybe 3-4 months, I slowly started to feel better. There was no, life is brilliant now, I want to run out of the door, because medication, it doesn't do that too. But I thought I could tackle the day better. And for the first time, I will admit to you, I've never said this before, but I had some suicidal thoughts. I was in a very bad place with it. So yes, I went on medication, and it helped massively. And then I've been off medication for a year now. When I came off it, I just felt so much better. And then I started running quite a lot in the Peak District, which has been pivotal for me. It's helped so much because I've been doing all these really big runs in the trails and the peaks. And when I was out there doing that, it came to realise that my body can only run all these big miles if I'm fueling it properly, if I'm looking after myself more. So it was a cross between coming off medication and hitting the big runs and the peaks that's just had this massive change on my life. Yeah, huge. And then at the beginning of the year, Abbott's World Major Marathons, they featured me in a health article in January. And since then, it's given me kind of a bit of a platform on Instagram to talk about running with eating disorders and recovery. And it's only this last 3 or 4 months where I feel so grateful and lucky to be able to talk to people like yourselves, and I've got this opportunity. And the more that I'm doing it, the more it's really helping me. And I just hope that it might shine a light to those that have suffered for, whether it's weeks, months, years, to say that, you know, there is help and things can get better. They really can.
Yeah, it's definitely again another very interesting part of your journey. One of the things I just want to kind of come back to there is about the medication, because I think I know personally a number of people that have been on antidepressants that's really helped them, and it sounds like a really key part of your journey, in that this medication is there, and unfortunately there's a huge stigma attached to using this kind of medication in this country. I think some people think that once you start taking it, you're going to be on it for the rest of your life, and that's not my understanding of the purpose of antidepressants. It's a tool to help you regain the kind of control you need to move on to the next stage of your journey. So that's a really interesting thing to hear how they've helped you in your journey. And you mentioned about trying counseling and meditation and things, because different things work for different people, and it's fantastic that did you say the charity is called First Steps?
Yeah, so First Steps, that they're based in Derby. So I volunteer for First Steps now, and they are amazing. That they are so good, and I learned a lot from going to First Steps. So I started volunteering for them last year, and I'm so proud to be able to do that, and I love it. I really am enjoying it. But I agree with medication. When I went on it, I actually thought myself, am I going to be on this for the rest of my life? And the doctor said to me, she said that you can stop on it for the rest of your life, but hopefully you won't have to. But I did go through those thoughts, and I was a little bit embarrassed about it. I think I've got to go on these tablets, but I can honestly say I am positive that they saved my life. I was in a really bad place, and I don't want to go on them again. But if people are struggling, they are there, and they help me immensely, and everything's turned around since I went on them and came off them. Yeah,
I mean, it's one of the most difficult things that we're involved with Mountain Rescue is we go out to help the police to search for people that have gone out to harm themselves. We find some people in time, and sometimes we're doing body recoveries, which is in fact it's less than 2 weeks since the team was involved in the last in fact we've had 2 in the last month where we've ended up being involved in the body recovery. So
that must be hard for you. That's got to be.
It certainly is. I mean, it's something. Again, the way I try to look at everything in life, and I think most people try to, and we're sometimes more successful and sometimes less successful, is when you have experiences, especially ones that can be difficult experiences, is trying to use those as a lesson to see, how you could do things differently based on other people's lessons. And it's something I use it as it's an excuse to talk to my teenage son about these things, and it's a reason to bring up the topic. I mean, there was unfortunately one where I made the find, and that was a teenage boy. He was only about 2 years older than my son. That was about 18 months ago now.
That's devastating.
Yeah, so it's the sort of it's one of the least spoken about and kind of toughest things that we do in mountain rescue, and more so for the teams that are on the edges, like urban fringe, where we are. I'm in Huddersfield, and we're in West Yorkshire, so we've got the peaks, the Pennines, coming up through our area, so a bit further north than where you are, except it's the same set of hills ultimately. But yeah, in every case, you hear people saying, "Oh, we had no idea," because, as you say, when people are struggling with these things, obviously sometimes people can reach out and get help, and it's fantastic that you have in time and managed to turn things around and be where you are today. That's absolutely brilliant, and it doesn't mean to say that every day in the future will be easy. I'm sure it won't, but yeah, it's great to hear, stories of being able to get the right help. I'm sure in some ways you wished you got it years earlier, but it's
I do, yeah, and I do. And though, because this is another conversation I was saying in the week, I wouldn't change it now. I mean, I did go through a stage when I thought, gosh, this is a bit unfair, and what's been happening, and I've been going through this for so many years. I did go through that kind of stage, but now I think I wouldn't change any of it, because I wouldn't be who I am now. I wouldn't be strong enough to help to volunteer for First Steps. I wouldn't be talking to you. I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing. So I wouldn't change it at all now, any of it. I wouldn't even change the very dark thoughts that I had having to go onto medication, because it's turned things around for me. I can now have these conversations, and hopefully it might, just even if it just one person can listen and think, well, maybe I could talk about that. To me, it's worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I say, having some kind of involvement in this kind of area makes me think as well, what can I do to help? Can I encourage one person to ask for help? Obviously, with people I know, I'm quite aware of giving them a ring, not waiting for them to ring me.
Yeah.
But I'm sure you find the same, busy with kids, busy with family,
of course,
other things
life.
going on.
Yeah.
You can't ring everybody that you'd like to ring all the time. Unfortunately, some people end up lonely, thinking, nobody's interested in sort of helping me, and I'm sure that's never the case. I'm sure there's always people that are interested in helping.
Yeah.
So you then started running in the peaks. What was it that started to sort of give you the idea? How did that start?
I very first went to the peaks in 2015, so it was, gosh, a few years ago. A friend took me for a training run for a long run. I was training for London Marathon actually at the time. I absolutely loved it, but I came back and I was just at the time more focused on the shorter distances and a bit of pace. And then I started really enjoying these long runs. So I got back to the peaks by myself, jumping on the train, and I absolutely love it. It just feels so good for my soul, and it really has helped me, just getting off there, just running, putting one foot in front of the other, clearing my mind. I absolutely love it. In fact, I'm going tomorrow. I haven't been because of lockdown, and I can't wait. I'm so excited to get back there. So excited.
Yeah, I absolutely love it as well. The trail running. Again, as I mentioned, I started doing park running. Obviously, I was doing old road running at that time, and I kind of knew I wanted to learn how to trail run. Or fell run. I wasn't really sure what the difference was. And
I'm still not. Is it that? I still don't know.
There isn't really a difference. I think somebody who sees themselves as a diehard fell runner likes to, maybe you follow like a sheep trod, where it's not a path that's marked on a map. There's just a slightest trail on the ground, or even no trail at all. Whereas a sort of dedicated trail runner would always say, okay, I'm following, this is a trail, it's on a map, I know where I'm going. I think that's about the difference. Fell running therefore becomes more technical. in that, you know, you certainly get a lot of boggy ground, which
Yeah.
you do on the trails as well. But yeah, I mean, I do both. I've been up to the lakes helping people on the Bob Grahams and things like that. It's
amazing. I've not been to the lakes yet to run. It's hopefully this year.
Yes.
Hopefully this year.
Yeah, I find whenever I do something in the lakes, I've done a fell race in the lakes, and I think I was something like 7th last in the race or something like that. It's just a completely different level. You sort of come home and I'm usually, you know, maybe a third of the way through the pack on local fell races, which I don't do many of it. I do prefer the trails. I just find that the kind of forcing myself into the more technical running means that then when I come back to the trail, it's just that bit easier and I'm more relaxed and enjoying it more, and sort of go and push myself out my comfort zone with like a 5-mile race or something is great. But yeah, I don't do it too often because it hurts.
I like the pain. I like that running pain.
Well, it's kind of strange. I find with the short, fast running, the pain comes on quite quickly.
Yeah.
And it's like a sharp sort of thing. Whereas with the long runs, yeah, you in some ways you end up in more pain, certainly more time in pain. But it's kind of just more gentle and you can deal with it. And I mean, for me, it also comes back to dealing with anxiety, in that it's one of the things that almost made me stop running before I really got started, was like going along to park run and having it like a race.
Yeah.
That kind of 5K 3-mile distance, you can do that on anger, or you know, you can get the adrenaline going, you can
thrash it out. Yeah.
And that would be a really, for me personally, would be a really unhealthy thing to do, because it would kind of reward that side of my sort of behavior pattern. Whereas once I've tried to do the long runs, you go onto the start line, you think, well, I want to be as calm as possible. You know,
got a long way to go.
Long way to go. I don't want to waste any energy. I want to stay calm, and that was the start of my journey.
That's really realizing
that. Yeah. And
that's really interesting.
And then of course you get to enjoy the scenery more, because you go.
It's stunning.
You can lift your head up. It's just fantastic.
It's beautiful.
Yeah. Have you started doing runs through the night as part of this?
Well, I did the Goggins challenge. That was, I don't know if you've seen. So
I know a few people that have done that.
I was running through the night doing
4 miles every 4 hours for 48 hours.
That was my first probably experience. So that was the beginning of March actually. So it's only a month ago. But so 4 miles every 4 hours for 48 hours. But typical me, I ended up doing 10 miles over because I just thought I'd do a few more. I had a club 5K time trial race in the middle of it as well. But I loved it. I really enjoyed it. But it's bonkers, because it's not so much the distance. 48 miles, 58 miles over 2 days. It was the sleep deprivation, because you'd finish and all the time you'd got 3 hours to just about to rest, recover, and fuel up. And that's for 2 days constant. And I couldn't sleep at all. So I'd do the midnight run and I'd get into bed and I'd just be wide awake. And then I'd go again at 4 o'clock in the morning. And I think I worked it out and I had 6 hours sleep in the 2 days, unbroken. But I loved it. And I quite like running at 4 o'clock in the morning.
It's brilliant, isn't it?
Oh, dear. My mum wouldn't be very happy if I told her I was doing that again. She was worried about me. Message me when you get in at 4.
Yeah.
But now I enjoyed it. You feel like a bit of a superhero.
I find it a wonderful feeling, because like we're talking about sort of running in the peak, you know, in the sort of proper outdoors, sort of on the trails through the moors and things. It feels such a natural, energizing, uplifting kind of thing. And then when the next step I find is then to take it on to running right through the night. And it's a whole nother experience, and I find it just feels even more free than, you know, running in the countryside during the day.
Did you do that as part of a race running through the night, or is that just you training going off?
Well, because I knew I was going to do it in a race, I did it training first, because I went from, I started running, I think it was the 30th of July 2017. Pretty sure that was because it was a park run. So it was, there's a particular date. I can check my park run history. And so from that, then the following, so I just kind of kept, I built up to about 10-mile runs by the January. And in the January, I was out with Mountain Rescue, and we were supporting the spine race coming through. And I got talking to people in the spine race. And the following January, 2019, I did this, in fact, so maybe it was 2016 I started then, because 2018 I did the Spine Challenger, 108 miles. So in 12 months, I went from 10-mile runs to a 108-mile run.
Wow, that's amazing.
I don't recommend it. It hurt a lot.
I thought I was good at getting up to a marathon distance in 12 months. But
so yeah, I mean, during that time, I ran my first marathon, and 4 weeks later, I ran my first ultra.
Wow.
And then it was only a couple of months later, my second ultra was then this 110 miles. And yeah, I was injured for a long time after that. Took me another year to build up again. But
have you got an injury now? You've been
I mean, one of the things it's come on each, because I've done 2 spine challenges now, and I had an attempt at the full spine in 2020. And it hasn't been on since, so I haven't been able. I would have been there again this January, and something in each of the spines, I've got tendonitis in my. It's the tendons that come from your foot up your shin into your leg, and they control like rotation of your foot and things. Each time I've ended up with tendonitis, but then recently during my training, I've actually developed tendonitis in the same place on my right leg, which I'm dealing with at the moment. My current thinking is it's the slippiness of running at this time of the year, because every time you slip, you kind of jar the tendons.
Yeah.
And I've got a friend who's a great podiatrist, and she's had a look at my foot and my leg and everything, and it looks like I've probably twisted my ankle and just carried on running as we do.
As we do, yeah.
And that then puts swelling on the foot, makes the foot not work the way it normally works, and then starts straining other parts of the foot and the leg and the whole mechanism. And so yeah, this tendonitis it's one of the kind of things that I'm still dealing with. During that kind of journey of running, I've had to deal with lots of different types of injuries, like IT band, the classic one when you start upping your distance. But as I became more flexible, because of course before I started running I was just sitting at a desk all the time, you get more flexible and those issues move away. I had hip bursitis and ankle issues, was the tendons actually in like on the inside of the ankle rather than the ones on the shin. And I've kind of worked through all these things with different physios and people helping, and the only one that keeps reoccurring is this tendonitis that I've got at the moment.
It's frustrating, isn't it, injuries?
Yeah, I ran yesterday and I've got no pain. So
brilliant. Well, there we go.
That's good, yeah.
That is good. Fingers crossed then, you're on the up.
Yeah, but yeah, the races through the night. I've done 2 spine challenges, got nearly halfway through a spine race. Lakeland 100, go through the night on that as well. If you're slow, you go through 2 nights.
Yeah, you need to get your toe down then.
Yeah, well, my first spine challenger took me 46 hours.
Oh, wow.
I didn't sleep at all in that. Well, I slept on my feet while I was trying to walk.
Oh gosh.
So yeah, sleep deprivation becomes really fun.
Yeah, I was hallucinating. I was when I was doing the Goggins challenge. I thought I could see snakes in the road, and then people, and there were hedges, and I was seeing all sorts. I quite liked it in a weird way.
Saves money on drugs. Yeah, no, it is. It's amazing, kind of exploring yourself through doing these physical things.
You learn so much about yourself.
You do. Yeah. I mean, in that first Spine Challenger, I broke myself physically and mentally.
Yeah.
I went into the kind of the dark place that the anxiety and everything takes me. But that was then the time when I realized that actually I could find a different way with this. And in the next year, between my first Spine Challenger and 46 hours and my second Spine Challenger and 36 hours,
wow,
was actually more about mental development than physical development. And that's changed my life completely.
Well, ultra running, to me, it is mental, isn't it? You know, as I always say, your body, it does break before your mind. Well, you get this right, your mind does break before your body. But my thing is just keep getting out there and keep trying to keep pushing. I did my longest run that I've ever ran on. It would have been on Tuesday. But that was spread out through a few hours through the day, and I loved it. And I know I can run quite much further, but it is definitely all in the mind, definitely.
Yeah, it is. And I mean, the classic kind of mistake that people make, and I know because I've made it myself, is when you first start trying to do these long runs, and it sounds like you've done it in a much more sensible way, is, you know, somebody goes out and says, right, I'm going to run 50 miles for the first time, and they'll go and run as fast as they can for the first 20 and then limp for the rest of the time.
Yeah.
It's far more sensible to just go and jog the first 5 or 10 miles and then walk for a while, or have a rest, and just, you know, sort of be kind to yourself, because you're doing something which is just
extreme,
kind of way beyond what your body's ever done before.
Yeah.
And just help your body out a bit, because once you've done it once, the body remembers and develops, and it's the rest afterwards helps you develop, and then you can try and do it a bit faster. So of course, the first time I ran my first ultra was only 30 miles. I was just shy of 50k. It was like 49.9 or something. and it's still the fastest I've run that distance in. I've never done it that fast since, because
really
I just don't want to hurt myself that much anymore.
Yeah.
It's just...
Yeah. Well, you see, I want to go off and run another 35 miles next week. So if I go and thrash out a really pacey run, I wouldn't be able to. So no, I did just over 35 on Tuesday, but it was lots of stops, mini cheddars, flapjacks along the way, and I loved it. I loved it.
Yeah, and again, this is where it circles back to the topic about eating, doesn't it? That having this healthy relationship with food, where food it's fuel and it's nutrition, and it's moving away from this naughty food. There's no such thing as naughty food.
Yeah.
There's food that serves a purpose. One of the things that I've kind of finally, I think, wrapped my head around is the fact that the processed sugar, which generally is really bad for your health, is exactly the right thing to eat while you're running, because your body processes it really quickly and turns it immediately into energy for your muscles, helps you to run faster, further, and recover better. But it's really bad for you when you're sat on the sofa watching the telly. And so it's not naughty food, it's just food that needs to be eaten at the right time in the right circumstances. And that's, as you say, from, you know, where things might be taught in schools or comments that people might give, it can really confuse people. And, you know, I'm 43 now, and it's taken me till I was, in fact, I'd probably turned 43 by the time I worked it out. You know, it's a long time through my life before I feel like I understand the basics of nutrition finally.
Yeah.
But even then, putting it into practice, like in this last week where I've not been running, you know, going from doing 10 to 12 hours of running a week to none, that's a lot of calories that I normally burn. So I'm used to eating a lot because I'm burning the calories.
Yeah. I
obviously don't want to eat the same amount when I'm not running. But you also don't want that to turn into a huge negative sort of burden, because mentally
It's hard,
you're
isn't it?
suffering enough already because you're not running. So
it's really, really tough,
Yeah.
and it's tough finding that balance and that happy place. And I don't think you should deny yourself of anything either.
No, I agree. Yeah.
I mean, I went through a stage when I'd just be restricting quite a lot, and I wouldn't eat, and then I'd be so hungry, so then I would eat whatever I wanted, but then I'd feel so guilty for eating it that I then had to get rid of it. So I don't deny myself anything anymore. If I want something, then I'm blooming well having it.
Yeah, I agree. One of the things that I read that certainly helped me in the time, because I've been through periods of time where I've decided that I wanted to lose weight and things like that, and one of the things I found really helpful was rather than focusing on denying things and saying you're not going to have something, is saying, what can I replace that with? So like if I wander into my kitchen, and I will do this afternoon while I'm working, I'll wander into the kitchen to get a cup of tea, and I think, I'd quite like a biscuit. And rather than thinking, no, you can't have that, which is quite a kind of harsh thing to, you might be able to do it for, I can usually do it for a few days that way. But then I'll give in and eat a packet. So then I'll think, well, what can I replace it with? Can I eat an apple, or can I eat some nuts, and can I replace it with something that adds more nutrition? Or am I going for a fast run in an hour's time, in which case eat the biscuit, because that's the right time to do it. But it's really complicated, because you're not only trying to trick your brain, you're trying to trick all the bacteria in your stomach that are sending signals to your brain and firing your hormones. And
it's interesting talking to you and listening to you, because it just proves that how many of us have got little hang-ups and think about food and our nutrition, and just talking and listening to you and what you're saying, it's just so many of us out there that do have little things that we can struggle with, and they can play on our minds, whether it's you going to the kitchen and wanting a biscuit and I think you should have an apple instead. It's we've all got these little things going off, haven't we?
Well, we have, and again, this is where I think, whether you're talking about eating disorders or different kinds of mental health issues, I don't think there ever is a case of, this million people don't have an eating disorder, this million people do. It's just everywhere. It's all grey area in between. It's different levels of, well, what level of issue do you have with this part of your life? And I haven't met anybody who's perfect, except my wife, of course. She's
of course, obviously.
Not that she listens to the podcast, so I can say whatever I like. But yeah, as I say, I certainly believe we all have issues in all areas, and it's just different levels of it. And people shouldn't feel ashamed for feeling like their issue's worse than somebody else's, because I can pretty much promise there's always somebody else out there with a worse issue.
I think opening up and talking to people, it does help so much massively. I mean, I always thought with my eating disorder, it was a dirty little dark secret, and I couldn't tell anybody about it because it was just so embarrassing, and it was awful. And they just they thrive off that, and it was just made it worse. So the more that I talk, and the more that I keep saying to people, open up or talk to somebody you can trust, or it pays off. It really, really does. Massively. It's changed my life, being able to open up and talk.
Yeah, that's so brilliant to hear. I mean, I love these stories from people. But again, I mentioned just before we started, it's the reason why I started doing the podcast is when I started doing ultra runs, meet people, and it was only about my first ultra I did. I met Kimmy Kens, as she's known on Instagram and things. We ran in the same race, and we've been friends ever since. And it's just, when you're running with somebody for hour after hour, all these stories come out.
Yeah.
And you're seeing every single person that you meet in these races is so inspirational. Everybody's been through different things. Some people will tell you about changing their career at 50 years old, and some people tell you about things that kids have gone through, and unfortunately, you hear the sad stories as well, where people losing their children, and all these different things come out during these long runs, and I think it's because kind of going through that running journey together, and it's almost like the pain and suffering that we're sharing in these events makes it a safe space to talk about other pain and suffering.
I get that. I get that.
I think a lot of people need a bit more pain and suffering in their lives, in this kind of safe space way of doing it that we do with long runs. So you mentioned you're back off to the peak tomorrow.
Yes, I can't wait. Absolutely can't wait. I'm not going mad on the distance, because obviously I had that big run on Tuesday. So no, I'm not getting mad. I'm just going to get off in the trails, get off in the hills. I'm not quite sure yet of my route. I'm going to have a little look in a bit. But I'll be honest with you, there's a couple of pubs that I like to visit in the peaks. And obviously they're not open yet, are they? So I'll not be able to frequent those. But no, I can't wait. I've already started packing my bag ready. Jump on the train and see where I end up. I can't wait.
That sounds fantastic. I'm not sure yet how much running I'm going to get done this weekend. I've got to be very careful to build back up. Not
it's hard, isn't it? Being sensible, being careful.
It is
frustrating. I know.
I mean, I've been doing some open water swimming.
Right, okay.
To get my fix of the outdoors without risking damaging my leg anymore. That's been really good. Cool.
I don't think I dare get in the open water swim. I'm not. Do you know, once I actually got into my head that I wanted to do a half Ironman, and I got up to 2 miles in the swimming pool, and obviously I could get the running in, but the open water swim, I'm not too keen on that. Well,
I think a good way to start is just on a hot day, whether you're in the peaks or the Lake District or somewhere where when you've run 10 miles or so already and you're really hot, just get in the water.
I might try that actually. That does sound quite tempting.
Exactly, and that's kind of how it starts, I think.
I'm gonna have to take some more clothes with me to the peaks then, and take the swimming costume.
Well, when I'm fitting well and it's summertime, from where I am, there's a reservoir which is like completely permitted swimming sort of place, and it's about 6 miles from my house. So I run there, and I just swim in my running shorts, and then I run back again, and that's just.
That wouldn't be as easy for me.
It's a lovely evening out. But that's to be honest, that's my favorite kind of open water swimming, where, like I said, I'm literally just in my running shorts. But at the moment, when I got injured, I bought a new a wetsuit, nice Alp Kit one, and that has been a really good choice, because I think I would have had. I've swum 3 times in less than a week, and I think I would have swum once if I didn't have the new wetsuit. So. Yeah,
I like there's an Alp Kit shop, isn't there? And is it Hathersage?
Hathersage, yeah.
Yeah, I love that little shop.
Yeah, it's brilliant. Costs me a fortune every time I go there.
Yeah, I'm due a trip there, I think, as well soon.
Yeah, I think it's 12th of April they'll be able to open again. So yeah, I had to buy the wetsuit online, but luckily it fits. So that was good. But yeah, can't wait to be getting back up to the lakes and Wales as well. So have you signed up to any races yet?
Well, yeah, I had last year, and then they've all been postponed. So do you know what? I haven't got a clue what's going on with any of them at the minute. None of them. So yeah, from marathons to ultras. So I'm not going to get bogged down with the thought of am I going to run them or not. I'm just going to keep getting off and getting the miles in, and hopefully, be able to race, because I've not done an ultra race yet. I'm doing these distances, but I've not actually ran my first ultra race. So hopefully this will be the year that I'll be able to do it. Fingers crossed.
Well, there's certainly a few nice ultras in the Peak District. It's a great place to start. Yeah, I've got a couple lined up for later in the year, but I'm in a similar mindset. I've got one which I've got a place for in June, and I've told them I'm not running it because it's it's still too uncertain, and I've had enough of will it, won't it, might not. So yeah, the earliest one that I know I'm doing is end of July. Can be quite confident about that, I think, hopefully.
Yeah, I mean, I trained for quite a few last year and they got cancelled, and I was mentioning the day I trained it for, well, that was my first one, a 38 miler, and that was the same situation. The day I got my race number was the day it got cancelled, and it was so frustrating because I just felt so ready for it, and I'd tapered and I'd done all the training, so it was frustrating. So I'm just in this mindset now where, well, they're in, if I get to do them, brilliant, but I'm not gonna get too hung up on it, or just keep getting off there and doing my little adventure days. I'm running really long on Tuesdays at the minute, so I'm off work on a Tuesday now, go and get these 30 milers out, and I just carry on doing that. I love it. I really do enjoy it. I was walking through rivers and all sorts this Tuesday, God. It was great. Yeah,
well, I was about to say, at some point we can meet up in the Peak and do a run together. But then
I would love to.
If you speak with Kim about what I've had her doing in the Peak, you might be too scared to.
I would never to be too scared for anything. I will have you know, never.
That's when you start running through the night in the middle of winter, and I had to kind of throw her across the river because she couldn't get across it herself.
Well, I love a challenge. I'll piggyback you across.
Yeah, that was fun.
I'm definitely up for runs in the Peaks, definitely.
Yeah, so yeah, once I know what's happening with my injury, I'll be able to commit to something, because again, I hate letting people down, so I tend to just not arrange things until I know. Once I know, then things can be sorted out pretty quick.
Well, keep me in mind, because I would love a little running about and can have a chat.
Yeah.
I'll push you in a river.
That's fine, as long as it's one day. Right. We'll look at wrapping up there. Is there any last advice you want to offer to anybody with regards to eating disorders? And
yeah, well, like I keep saying, and I will always keep going back to, just to, if you can, talk to somebody you can trust, open up. There are a lot of great charities out there. I mean, the guys that I work with, First Steps are brilliant. Beat. And then if anybody, on Instagram wants to send me a message, and I've always said that my DMs are always open, and I will quite happily point people in the right direction, or maybe just give a little bit of advice of things that have helped me over time. I'm quite happy to do that. It's just been lovely to talk to you and, talk about these difficult subjects that people shy away from.
Yeah. Thank you very much for coming along and talking about these things. It's lovely to talk to you as well.
Thank you.
I'll keep watching your Instagram posts, and we'll get a run sorted out when we can.
I look forward to it. I'll bring my cozzy.
All right. Thanks very much, Laura.
Take care.